Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
Welcome in, one and all. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you on a Thursday. We're recording this on Thursday morning. Busy week, boys.
Been a long and busy week.
Yeah.
Our hairs are on fire.
Yeah. Something like that. I don't know. But listen, it has been a wild 2 weeks, as wild a 2 weeks as we've ever seen since we started the podcast here at Black and Gold Banneret. We already went at length about Gus Malzahn and our night shift, which you can catch on our YouTube channel. But we'll recap that. We'll talk also about UCF's new defensive coordinator, Travis Williams, and what happens with their old defensive coordinator, Randy Shannon, in a little bit. And we also got plenty of basketball to talk about. We were all watching. Well, no, we weren't all watching. You weren't, Derek, but Murph and I were at UCF USF last night. Big W for the men. UCF women got a win at Tulsa by 2. I think the Tulsa curse is finally going by the wayside, gentlemen. I think.
Oh, people will not agree until something happens with football.
Yeah, fair enough. But like, I can feel the tide turning, and then lots to talk about in all the other sports as well. Women's soccer off to their 1-0 start. Men's soccer got a win over Temple as well. Softball, Eric Lopez will dive in on that because they're at home this week for the first time. And plenty more. We also interviewed Greg Lovelady, which you can find on our subsequent podcast on this feed, our 2021 baseball preview with Greg. I love talking to Greg. We all love talking to Greg. Like, we always sit in his office, right? Of course, this year you can't, but this interview this year was as good an interview with Greg as we've ever had. And the other ones have been great. So definitely recommend you check out that. But not before you listen to this podcast. And let's talk about UCF's new head football coach, Gus Malzahn. Eric is still like on cloud 9 about this. 5 years.
Hi, man. It's a great time to be alive.
5 years, $11.5 million is the deal, with a buyout that steps down $2 million a year, starting with $7 million. We obviously, like we said, we wax poetic about it on night shift, but before we get to his new hire of Travis Williams as defensive coordinator, I want to gauge your guys' input on kind of how Gus has been approaching the team to this point. I think that there were some eyebrows raised when Gus was first announced amongst some former and some current players, I think, but he seems to have steadied the ship, right? I mean, because people are worried all about Dylan Gabriel and all that kind of stuff, and Dylan seems to have come around on it, at least judging by his social media metadata. But it does feel like everyone has finally been like, okay, we're going to be more than fine, right?
Yes, I mean the narrative that players were going to transfer because Jeff Levy wasn't the head coach was always overblown and asinine. So yeah,
I love Murph in the morning. You just give no craps.
Is this me in the morning? I mean, really, the listeners probably wouldn't even know if it's me at night. I don't know. it was a ridiculous storyline that we had there running on Twitter for a week or so. But it doesn't matter because they'll be able to Gus and the people at UCF who hired Gus will be able to talk to the players and convince them, like, look, we made this move for a reason and it was in your best interests, and you should, give us a little bit of time to prove to you why he should be your football coach, and so if you give them that common courtesy, and they have, I think they'd come around on how good Gus can be for this program. So no, I think everything is fine. Everything is dandy. Let's try to move forward into spring ball.
And so we have, with a new defensive coordinator, Travis Williams comes over. He was the linebacker coach most recently at the University of Miami for all of 2 weeks. But he was linebacker coach under Gus prior to that at Auburn, right? Played at Auburn, was a defensive assistant. He was part of the undefeated team in 2004 with Jason Campbell and Cadillac Williams and all those guys. Ronnie Brown was a leading tackler on that team, believe it or not, as a player. Played a couple years for the Falcons and then went into coaching. He was a quality control assistant on the 2010 national championship team that Gus was the offensive coordinator on, and then stayed on when Gus took over for Gene Chizik. He said in his press conference that Manny Diaz, actually the head coach at Miami, was very supportive of him going. He's like, actually said, like, you need to take that opportunity. You can't pass that up. And was kind enough to let him out of his agreement with Miami. And so Travis comes up here and brings evidently quite a bit of enthusiasm to the table here. In fact, we have some sound from Travis here from his press conference. Let's listen to Travis.
So blessed to be here. Blessed for the opportunity. Blessed to be back with Coach Malzahn, a guy that I really, really admire, a guy that's a mentor of mine. We have a great relationship. I'm blessed to be able to call the defense and call the plays here. Man, it's just an awesome opportunity, man, just to be able to be around the guys. Just what you're going to see on defense, we're going to get to the ball. But relentless effort, like our hair is on fire. Like it's going to be the main thing you see. You want to see us put a blanket over our defense and have 11 guys to the ball. We're going to have fun. We're going to have great energy. I mean, this is, I'm just so fired up, to be at UCF, to be able to call the plays and be able to serve these young men. That's what it's all about, just serving the young men and being here for them and just making sure that college experience is a great experience on and off the field.
All right, that's Travis Williams. In addition to that, his, looked like the defensive team was pretty excited to meet him. Based on his own Twitter post, obviously, PR, social media PR being what it is. But what does he bring to the table here in terms of how things are going to look different for UCF from what we've seen the last couple of years under Randy Shannon?
It sounded in terms of philosophy a lot of the same, a lot of the, priority on turnovers, relentlessness and energy, all those sort of things that Randy preaches. So we really won't know how he's very different until they actually snap the ball. I just think he's obviously got this youthful exuberance. Randy was much more more stoic, if much more composed. I think there's much more life in what Travis Williams, when he's talking to you. There's much more energy, much more action, whereas Randy's sort of a more older, commanding presence. So I wonder how that goes over during the season. We all have seen the Netflix videos of Randy at halftime and how he operates, usually sweating as he's pounding on the whiteboard and talking to his guys at halftime. So I'd like to see how Travis Williams operates in those situations. But it was a good first press conference. But yeah, his philosophy sounded a lot like what Randy Shannon sort of leans on anyway.
Travis looks like he might destroy the whiteboard. Just tackle it and destroy it in the quarter. Eric, what was your impressions of Travis, and what do you think we're going to see?
I think there's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, and also you've noticed, I think now, one thing is for sure, the defense is going to be held accountable. And I think I've been really blown away by how the defense has been, discussed at length, talking about being a top 10 defense, talking about how they're going to be aggressive and make plays. I think it's a clear message that the players gave, I think, to Terry, and I think the message has been clear. And I think defensive players probably felt neglected the last couple of years, probably felt like they were second class, if you will, to the offense. And I think that's kind of what I read into this, because I think it's clear those days are over. I think this is a balanced team now, and I think that's the goal of this coaching staff. And I also think this staff is serving these players as humans. They're talking about humans and serving them. And I think the relationship is actually pretty strong, and it's going to be pretty strong. And I think it's going to be strong off the field, and I think they feel that that's going to help contribute to results on the field. So I'm impressed with Williams. He's a rising star. They were under him at Auburn. They were really good defensively. I think this was this was something that was already rumored before Gus even had his press conference. So they're clearly on the same page, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty remarkable. I've just been amazed how much defensive talk we've had this week. Probably more than we've had maybe in the last few years.
Especially from a staff that's now led by an offensive coach.
Yep.
That's the other thing too. So Gus was at the basketball game last night. Played all the hits, which was great. Now, the question is, what becomes of UCF's relationship to their previous defensive coordinator, Randy Shannon? As of right now, he is not listed on the coaching staff on UCF's website. Although, interestingly enough, Willie Martinez is. Although Willie, we found out yesterday, Brian Murphy, that he has accepted a job at Tennessee to work under Josh Heupel once again. The contract for Randy, which we talked about a couple months ago at the end of the regular season, he's due $1 million. He just got a $300,000 retention bonus for being employed by UCF as of February the 5th. He actually got that bonus paid to him on Monday. He is owed, according to his contract, 100% of that money unless he finds a job elsewhere, in which case that money is offset, or that buyout rather is offset by however much he makes at his new gig. So I would imagine that, based on that, do you think that we may see Randy Shannon in a new job sooner rather than later, Murph?
At some other university?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, I know the UCF hopes so, right, Eric? I mean, it's we
all hope so. Create football leagues, XFL 2, XFL 3, whatever. Find a league, find a job.
Well, is it? I think I forget it. I forget if I saw it in the contract language. Is it a college job only that he has to take? I forget. Anyway, but that's the situation with Randy. And now I'm really going to be interested to see what Gus does with the rest of the coaching staff too. What are we going to see for his offensive assistants? What are we going to see for the defensive assistants? Right now, the previous defensive coaches that are still on the list are Corey Bell, Shane Burnham, Jacob Branowski is still the special teams quality control. Special teams coordinator is still Nick Toth. But we wait to see what Gus decides to do with the rest of his staff. So, and they're going to have to do this pretty quickly too, Murph, because I think spring football, assuming we're going to have it, is right around the corner, right?
Well, Gus said in his press conference that he would like to get something going in the next 30 days or so. And by the way, it looks like we're going to get a schedule today. So
for the spring?
No, for the season.
Oh, for the season. Oh, wow. Okay.
We always record these press conferences at just the absolute right time. These podcasts. So right when we wrap up here, we'll probably dropping a schedule.
Well, that gives me the opportunity to say you can catch the latest news on UCF schedule on blackandgoldbanneret.com and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. Shameless plug. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. UCF football currently teasing on Twitter about a schedule release at 11 o'clock, which I know
hey.
Oh, a little breaking news. All right.
that's what it
Well,
looks like.
Wouldn't be a podcast without it.
But yeah, and then spring ball, something in the I guess the mid-March area would be, I guess, to Gus's liking.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they play the spring football situation now under COVID, because there was no spring football last year. That
Well, I think what we're going to see is I think they'll practice in the spring, but I would be shocked if we have a spring game. I mean, you saw Florida's already
I'd be
their
shocked too.
spring game. There's no reason to have a spring game, which
Yeah.
with multi-counter on that. So the important thing is the practices, not the game.
No, yeah, and the coaches will tell you that too, right? I mean, they're not. They care about the practices more than. I mean, we saw under O'Leary, the spring practice the spring game wasn't even it wasn't a game. It was basically a glorified practice. I think O'Leary couldn't. He didn't want to bother with that. It was a nice little reveal when Scott Frost came in and when Josh Heupel came in, because we got to see some things, but not all that much. Yeah, they don't want to give up that much anyway. It's more of a football festival than anything else. But all right, so Gus Malzahn is firmly entrenched. We'll be following what goes on with the schedule as it drops, hopefully pretty quickly here. So. Let's go ahead and take
by the time you listen to it, it'll be out.
We can,
unless we just edit the show and just put it at the end.
Well, that's the beauty of podcasts, is you can just do that and go ahead to move ahead. But we're going to talk about basketball for a little bit, and I guess by that time we'll have the football schedule to really quick go over once that drops.
Right,
All
we got more football news later on the show anyway.
Exactly. So, all right, take a quick break.
Big news.
Yes, we take a quick break. When we get back. Lots to talk about with basketball. 2 wins for UCF on Wednesday night. 1 at home for men's basketball over USF. 1 on the road for UCF women's basketball at Tulsa. That and more when we return. It's the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
We got some breaking news, Brian Murphy. The UCF football schedule is officially out. It just dropped just as we were about to start this segment. All right, so here's how it's going to look. Boise State, obviously the opener, September 4th. Right now scheduled for a Saturday, but they could move it to Thursday the 2nd or September 3rd. That's a Friday at the Bounce House, depending upon TV. I think that UCF is trying to book on that one being a TV game. We've started on Thursdays and Fridays quite a bit the last several years, haven't we, at home? So that's what we're going to start with there. Bethune-Cookman is back on the schedule for Saturday, September 11th, TBA. That's our second straight home game to start the season. And the only FCS opponent. Then, on the road, Friday, September 17th at Louisville. Stay on the road Saturday, October 2nd at Navy. That's the conference opener against the Middies. October 9th is by the way, I should mention the bye week is in between the at Louisville and then the at Navy. So if you're trying to plan things out, that September 24th or 25th weekend is going to be UCF's bye week. Mm-hmm. Home conference opener, October 9th, Saturday against ECU. Then back on the road a week later, Saturday, October 16th at Cincy. 6 days, and then October 22nd, Friday at home versus Memphis. That's a tough 6-day slate right there. At Cincinnati, home for Memphis on a week shortened by 1 day. After the Friday night against Memphis at home, they go back on the road to face Temple. in Philly. Back home Saturday, November 6th. By the way, Temple's Saturday, October 30th, the day before Halloween. Saturday, November 6th, home for Tulane. Back on the road again, Saturday, November 13th at SMU in Dallas. And then 2 home games to finish out. Saturday, November 20th against UConn. That's a non-conference game, basically a half bye because UConn's no good. And then Black Friday against South Florida at home, November 26th, the day after Thanksgiving in the Bounce House. So, initial thoughts, Brian Murphy, on this slate.
Got a few, and the one thing that pops out to me right away is that Cincinnati and Memphis back-to-back, going from road to home in the span of 6 days. That is probably the thing. I mean, you've got arguably your 2 toughest opponents within less than a week. That is not going to be easy. I really wish, they have a bye week before the Navy game. It's too bad that bye week isn't after the Navy game. We all know how tough those Navy games are. They punish your body. It's really hard to recover from those games because Navy is just cutting you all day long. And so to have that bye week before the game, I don't know, kind of feels like a tease. We obviously would hope the Boise State game is on the 2nd or 3rd, which would be a Thursday or a Friday, because it would give that game a nice maybe a spotlight feel to it.
Yeah, that has ESPN written all over it on a Thursday night.
Yeah, which would be great. We'd like that. And then at the end of the schedule, wrapping up at home with 2 games, you get UConn and South Florida. And, it's obviously always a short week heading into South Florida, but with UConn preceding that, that could be treated as a mini bye. No disrespect to the Huskies, but, they're bad.
That's what you get for leaving the conference. Yeah, you're 100% right on all that. That was exactly what my impressions were on that. Obviously, the big game to start Boise. I would have a hard time believing that game would not end up on a Thursday or a Friday. I think UCF would prefer the Thursday night to start the season. You would get a big national TV audience. You can get hopefully, if all goes well with COVID-19, you can get a big crowd in the Bounce House for that to start the season. That would be huge for the program as well. You get to stay home for Bethune right after that. So if it's a rough game against Boise, you can at least stay home. You played Bethune in the lone FCS game. That bye, that September 25th bye, that I think you're right. The 2 tough stretches I see are after Navy, where you're right. We remember Trey Neal talked about this. Is that in 2017, that was really, really tough. Like they played, that 11-game stretch, and like they were just never 100% after the Navy game in Annapolis. That was a really tough game. Now this Navy team is projected to not be as good as that Navy team, but it's still Navy, and they still do exactly what they cut block you all over the place. You're constantly going down and getting back up and going down and getting back up just to protect yourself. On the road on October the 2nd, and then you're at least you're coming back home for ECU, but you don't get a bye the rest of the way. Right after that, you're right. It would have been really nice if maybe you played Navy on the 25th of September, then had the bye, then played ECU. That would have worked out in UCF's favor. Unfortunately, it doesn't. At Cincy, October 16th is going to be a tough stretch, and then the 6 days later, home for Memphis. Thank goodness it's home at least, but like Cincy and Memphis back to back, that's going to be a real ringer for UCF. And then you're right, they sort of they catch a break with UConn at home in the non-conference before playing South Florida on Black Friday, and which is a lot better than playing a tough say a tougher conference opponent and then turning around for South Florida 6 days later.
And as Brandon Helwig just pointed out, rivals Brandon Helwig just pointed out, no Tulsa.
Thank God.
No Tulsa. Whee!
Thank God. No at Tulsa. Most important.
No at Tulsa especially.
So there's your UCF schedule for 2021, UCF football schedule. We'll have something up for that as well here on Black and Gold Banneret. All right, let's talk basketball. War on I-4 last night at Edition Financial Arena on ESPNU. UCF returning the favor against South Florida, 81-65. Remember, USF beat UCF by 7 in Tampa back on January the 2nd. But the Knights really took it to South Florida. I thought in the latter part of the first half, early part of the second half, they were up by, I think, what was the largest lead there, Murph? I think it was 20?
25? 20? No, wait. No. It was big. What was it?
It was at least 20. I know that much.
Yeah, it was 20 at one point.
It was significant.
It was
put it that way. So, and that was in the second half. In a game that looked like it was going to be tight early on. South Florida was hitting their threes in the early part of the game. It looked like UCF was having trouble getting out to the corners to try and cut off some of their 3-point shooting. But you look at the box score here, South Florida really had trouble shooting. They shot just 31.7% for the game, 20 of 63. Really had trouble from beyond the arc at 22.7%, 5 of 22. Meanwhile, UCF shot 51%. A lot of good shots on the interior. And the Knights hit 9 threes on 21 attempts, 42.9%. A lot of fouls last night, too. 24 fouls were called on UCF, 19 on USF. But this seemed like, if you'll forgive the expression, Murph, a normal game. Because USF has their bigs, right? They have Chua, they have Yetna, who likes to step outside a little bit, but really wasn't overly effective from outside. And UCF their goal was to combat that with Jameel Reynolds and Avery Diggs. Now, Avery didn't play much or certainly didn't play as much as I think Johnny Dawkins would have preferred because he got into very quick foul trouble. But Jameel played pretty good defense on the interior, got himself to the line, scored 7 points. But the story here in this game was this was kind of an offensive coming out party for C.J. Walker. He had 18 points on 7 of 12 from the field to go with 9 rebounds, 4 blocks on the interior, 14 each for Darius Perry and Darren Green Jr. They hit 5 threes between them. Darius was 3 of 5 from the arc. And Isaiah Adams with a quiet 11 points on 3 of 5 from the field, all from outside. So this was a pretty workmanlike game. This is kind of like, I feel like this is the blueprint game of what Johnny Dawkins intended this team to look like the entire year, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the thing that Johnny likes, I think the stat that Johnny likes most is the defensive field goal percentage, 31.7%. That is the second lowest shooting percentage for any UCF opponent this year. I think they had a game where they had 31.6%. So really right around the lowest of any game this year. I thought, actually, you talked about the bigs. The fact that USF did not have Michael Durr for this game. Michael Durr didn't play. He was in sweats during warm-ups. I'm not exactly sure why he didn't play. He's 7 tall. He's a big, wide body. And in the game last month in Tampa, which UCF lost, he had 9 points, 11 rebounds. I thought really did good work in the paint. And early in this game, I know the stats may not show it, as far as points in the paint, ultimately they may not show it. But early in the game, I thought throughout, C.J. Walker and Jameel Reynolds did a really good job of getting in there and scoring. C.J. with some nice driving moves in the paint. Jameel Reynolds kind of backing down his man to get better position.
Yep.
I thought UCF really controlled the paint area better today than they did in Tampa last month. I thought it was a big deal. But when we talked to Johnny Dawkins after the game, he said the thing that he likes most was that this team was able to have a big lead. They got to double digits early in the second half and then extend it and build upon it. It got to 19 points at one point. That was their biggest lead of this game. 19 points. Johnny Dawkins said afterwards that is what he'd like to see. That is what he liked most out of this game. That his guys never relented. They always kept building upon the lead.
I thought our guys came really prepared. They were ready to compete, and so was South Florida. I mean, I thought it was a really good game early on, especially. But our guys started to kind of dig in and got a few extra stops and was able to kind of build a good lead, which was exciting to see. And then the thing I really liked is how we were able to sustain it. We were able to sustain it, continue to build that lead, which is something that we've been talking about, having more of a killer instinct where we get up. And I thought our guys really kind of, they showed that ability today. So that was good. And they beat a very good and experienced, USF team, a team that, like I said, has a number of veterans out there. And I was really proud of our young guys. Sometimes we're out there with lineups of, 2 freshmen, a couple sophomores. And so it's kind of interesting to see these young guys developing. But I thought it was a good win, good team win.
I thought that, CJ, like you were talking about, he was aggressive offensively, which I think was a lot of fun to watch. But I most enjoy watching him rebound. He's just he's the best rebounder I think I've ever seen at UCF. He pulled down 9 boards, 3 of them offensive. Had a big dunk, I think, off of a rebound as well, off of a block shot on a Darius Perry layup attempt. And then you mentioned Jamil. My favorite part was he got that and one where he just kind of lowered his shoulder and just bullied the USF center Russell Chua to the basket and got that and one. I was like, all right, that's some bully ball that we haven't seen from him. And I'm like, we keep saying, he's just a freshman, and once you get him, once they get him in the weight room for an entire offseason, oh boy, he's going to be a handful to deal with for opposing bigs, isn't he?
People should not forget that these freshmen did not have any sort of summer conditioning with with the program. They weren't allowed to do that. So, especially for a guy like Jamil, who you can see, they could be able to transform his body. Certainly there is some body work to be done there with Jamil, and when he's able to do that this offseason and really kind of learn more about what he can do on the court and with his reshaping body, like that is going to be fantastic to watch. I also thought, again, without Duran there, and you talked about CJ with the putback dunk, he did that a few times. Darren Green Jr. also flew in a couple times for putback layups. I thought UCF did a really good job of, again, without Duran there, they were able to crash the glass more and get putback baskets.
Yeah, believe it or not, actually, UCF got out-rebounded on the offensive boards 14-10, but it didn't feel like it.
No, not at all. And again, like the points in the paint, it wasn't a big difference either, but felt like UCF dominated in the paint too. Felt like they forced USF to shuttle for a lot of outside jumpers. So really, I thought, Johnny's never one to get too high or too low, but I thought this was one of the performances, maybe the best performance this team has had since the FSU win. Yeah. Maybe since the Cincinnati win, but really maybe the best performance this team has had since December. And again, this team continues to show that they have sort of found their footing here. They've played better the last few weeks, even in losses. Now they have this game, which was really impressive. This team is slowly ascending back to what I thought we hoped it would be in December. That doesn't change anything about the tournament or their postseason hopes or whatever. It's nice to see this team is sort of, getting back to the level where we all envisioned for them back in December.
So UCF is at 7-11, 5-10 in the league, but they've won 3 of the last 5, and now head on the road for 2 straight. Murph, Saturday at Tulane, and then Tuesday at SMU. So this is another. Right when you feel like they're hitting their stride, they have another tough slate popped up in front of them. Right, so. What are we thinking for these 2 games here, like what, in terms of what they can get done and what you want to see them get done here as we head down the stretch in the final 5 games of the regular season?
I mean, possibly it could be a tough stretch. Tulane's been feisty at times this year, but just 4-8 in conference. We'll see what happens. I don't, again, with this team right now, it's not a ton about, do you want to see them play well more than results? Like, again, a game against Cincinnati, which they lost by 1 point over the weekend. Out of that game, feeling pretty good about this team because they played really well in that game and just couldn't quite get back over the hump once they got behind. So even if they lose a couple of games down the stretch, and at SMU is going to be very tough if they're able to play that game.
That's the other.
I just want to see them. Yeah, by the way, guys, there's still games being canceled every day in this conference or postponed. So you still want to see them continue to share the ball like they've shared the ball. They've done a much better job of hanging on to the ball. I mean, we all talked about that during their last long road trip about how they were just turnover prone like nobody's business. They've been much better there. Mm-hmm. Continue to do that. Continue to find open shots. Continue to attack the paint. And sometimes it may not go your way because the ball bounces and the rim's unkind and whatever, but just play well. And I think they've done that here for, I don't know, going back to, you can see hints of it in the second Memphis loss on February 3rd. So, now for 2 straight weeks since then, they're 3-3, but this team, if a couple things break here and there, it's 5-1.
Yeah,
they've played really well for 2 consistent weeks here.
SMU, by the way, like you mentioned, 11-4, 7-4 in the league. They're in 4th place. Houston's in 1st at 11-2 in the conference, followed by Wichita and Memphis. Tulane is right behind UCF in the conference standings at 4-8, and they're 9-8 overall. 6-4 at home too. SMU at home is 6-2 as well. So. This is going to be a tough stretch for UCF, who's right now 2-8 on the road, and one of those 2 is at Florida State. It's still remarkable how that all worked out. But nonetheless, games are in front of you. You got to play them. Next time we see the Knights at home will be Saturday, February 27th against Temple. That's a 4 p.m. tip, and then March 2nd, Tuesday at home for Tulsa. By the way, all 5. Or UCF's next 4 games, I should say, are all scheduled to be on ESPNU, both the road games and then both the home games. And then the season finale at ECU will be on either ESPN2 or ESPNU. So you're going to have to keep an eye on the slate for UCF. That game is scheduled to be on Thursday, March the 4th at 9 p.m. Late start to that game, 9 p.m. in Mingus Coliseum to close out the regular season before the conference championship, which starts March 11th, Thursday in Fort Worth.
All right. They've also, and that conference championship, by the way, they released their ticket packages for that tournament yesterday, and I've heard that they plan to allow about 25% capacity inside Dickies Arena.
Right. So
anybody looking to make the trip, I mean, it's on you if you want to fly, but they will be having fans in the building.
Yes. So, speaking of conference contenders here, let's take a look at what the women did. They got a big win on the road at Tulane, 63-61 on Wednesday afternoon. Staved off a late rally. The Green Wave outscored the Knights by 10 in the 4th, but UCF was able to hold on. Double figures for the Knights. Alicia Lewis, 5 of 11, including 4 threes. He has 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. 13 for Masani Kaba in 39 minutes to go with, on 5 of 9 from the floor to go with 6 boards, and 12 and 7 boards on 6 of 13 for Tay Sanders, who came off the bench in that game. The Knights really struggled in the 4th quarter. They shot just 2 of 11, although they did pretty good at the line, 7 of 9 at the line to sort of finish it out. Meanwhile, Tulane, was hitting pretty well in the 4th quarter, 36% for the quarter, 36% for the game as well. But UCF still outshot them thanks to a hot first half that saw the Knights lead by 7 at the break, and they were actually up by 12 heading into the 4th before Tulane went on that run. So UCF is now 11-2, 9-1 in the American after the win at Tulane. And here's what their schedule looks like the rest of the way. They are home for Tulsa on Saturday, February 20th at noon. That game is on ESPN+. SMU wiped out their season, so that February 24th Wednesday game is not there. So the Knights really right now, Murph, have 3 of the last 4 at home, and the only one that they don't is the first half of that, basically a double header with USF, which will be Tampa Tuesday, March the 2nd at 7, and then Thursday, March the 4th at home, Senior Day, on against South Florida as well. That game will be on ESPNU. But it's Tulsa home, Temple home a week later before that double dip against South Florida, and that's going to be the that's going to be the acid test for UCF. Those two games against South Florida. I know that it's kind of weird because the first game was postponed back from February 7th, but I kind of like that, don't you?
Oh, it's great. Now, it's funny, but you kind of want USF's women's team to keep winning as well,
right?
Because you want that home and home back to back at the very end of the regular season to decide the conference winner, and that's what we're on pace for right now. So, if you're UCF, you've got these last two home games, Tulsa and Temple, and you just want to take care of business. And so, and then you kind of work yourself into what is basically, a series, a 2-game series to decide the conference champion. And USF held on Wednesday night, had to really fight back and claw back to force overtime, and then won in overtime against a 4-14 Cincinnati group. Mm-hmm. And they have 3 games remaining before they face UCF, and really. You just kind of want to see UCF go 2-0 and USF go 3-0, and then we'll meet up on March 2nd and see how the chips fall.
Yep, sort this all out. Well, right now the schedule, or the standings, I should say, have USF at 9-0 in the conference, 12-1 overall. UCF right behind them, 9-1 in conference, 11-2 overall. So, followed by Houston, Tulane, Temple. Temple's 9-5 in the league, pretty good. Even though they're 9-8 overall, they were 0-3 out of conference, and then and they were 9-5. So far. And they've gotten actually 14 of their games in, which was pretty good considering, the issues with COVID that we've had up in the Northeast. Tulsa, UCF's other opponent in the upcoming week, 4-10 over in the conference and 5-10 overall. So now remember, UCF lost, their only conference loss was at Temple, which Temple, Philly has just been their bugaboo the last few years. It's unreal.
And USF goes up to Temple next week.
Yes, they do. So this is going to be this is going to be a really, really fun stretch in the women's basketball season. And remember, they start their conference championship Monday, March the 8th, with the championship game on Thursday, March 11th at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, the same day as the first round of the men's. So it's a wild American Athletic Conference basketball palooza in Fort Worth that week, especially culminating. I think the best day is Thursday. I love it when we see the women's and the men's tournaments for different conferences taking place simultaneously or semi-simultaneously in the same place, because it's like a basketball convention, and I would love it if, I know that they don't want it, I know that they probably don't want to do this, but I would love to see the American think about, maybe having these tournaments coincide somehow and have like the championships on the same day. Like, that would be so much fun to me. Like, it's kind of like a nice little preview of the tournament too, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that would be fantastic.
It'll also be fun for you. It'll also be fun for you, like less hotel bills, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I do plan to be there. So yeah, I would certainly enjoy that. But I don't know. I feel like I'm tempting fate by going back to Fort Worth. But
well, you're gonna have to do it at some point.
They're probably gonna cancel it again.
Oh no! Don't let that happen. No. We need this season. We need this. We're gonna need this in March to get us through, right? I mean, so listen, everybody, just keep doing the right thing. We'll get there. It'll be fine. So yeah, there's your update on. By the way, one last little word. Congratulations to Coach Abe, because that victory against Tulane on Wednesday was her 100th victory at UCF. And so we're really, really happy for the job that she has done. What a fantastic run she has had here at UCF overall, because she really changed the culture of the program starting from the day she got here. And this has been an amazingly successful team under her tutelage. 20 wins every year, and even this year, I don't know. Well, let's see. Do they have that? Could they get to 20 wins or 11-2? It's going to be tough. Even if they win out, they would be 16-2, or no, yeah, 16-2 in the regular season. and then 17, 18, 19. All right, so they'll probably have to win out and then win a game in the first round of the NCAAs in order to do that, in order to get to 20 wins again.
There's asterisks all over this season, and obviously, no one can, they were on pause for weeks.
True. Yeah, I mean they had 4 straight games wiped. Including 3 of them were on the road. One of them was originally wiped and then moved, and then the move was wiped. The game that was moved was against Wichita State. But at least they'll get the South Florida game back in that final weekend or that final week of the regular season. All right, stick around. When we come back, we'll talk about news and notes from everywhere else around the world of UCF sports. Volleyball taking the week off, but some scheduled news for them. We got tennis. We got soccer getting underway. Lots to talk about still to come here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Jeff, Eric, and Brian here with you as we update you on what's going on around the world of UCF sports here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't forget to download the UCF baseball preview show that we did with Greg Lovelady, which is right here on this feed. I'm going to put this podcast up, and then I'm going to put that one right up after it because baseball.
Yeah, and Murph, you were all worried last week we wouldn't get an hour of baseball preview. Heck, we
got us some baseball. Sam is going to be so happy. Baseball starts on Friday at 6 at home against FAU. Then they go down to Boca on Saturday and Sunday to play the Owls. Back home Tuesday to play Stetson at 6 at John Juliano Park before they go on the road yet again next Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Ole Miss. We talk about that schedule and what to expect from Greg Lovelady's team with the champ himself, Greg Lovelady, on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast on our special baseball edition. So make sure you follow us and follow our Twitter feed for the latest on that. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast feed if you don't already to get that. It's a great interview with Greg. Highly recommend it. On the other diamond, softball. 3-1 start, Eric Lopez. Knights go down to Fort Myers and get off to a very nice start against FGCU. 13-0, 8-0 on the first day doubleheader, and then the second day doubleheader they lost by 1, 3-2, but then came back and won 8-5. The highlight was Aaliyah White, who is now very much within striking distance of breaking the UCF all-time wins record already. She's at, what is it, Eric, 79 right now?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, from the weekend standpoint, they were like an inning away from a perfect weekend. They gave up a 3 spot in the 6th inning in the 3rd game, lost that game. But, Aaliyah picked up 2 wins. Wasn't as good in the second outing, but their offense picked her up. And now, if you go based on this schedule, you got New Mexico State, probably gets a start here. She can win that. She would tie Shelby Turnier for the most wins with 80 wins. And with some interesting news that came out Wednesday via Missouri, UCF now will host number 21 Missouri on Wednesday. That's been added to the schedule.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Missouri's lost some games due to the weather up in the Texas-Louisiana region. It's been wiped out through most of the country. So a lot of softball teams have actually had trouble playing games because of that. And so Missouri actually just joined the FAU tournament and got a UCF midweek game out of it. So now all of a sudden, Aaliyah White could break the record as early as Wednesday in theory, assuming that she doesn't get 2 wins this weekend against New Mexico State. So that's been huge. But obviously, that's going to take care of itself in due time. Offensively, this team is still very good. They got a freshman in Kennedy Searcy who can hit for power and run for speed. It's probably going to be their leadoff hitter all year. That's the big takeaway from the weekend is they got a stud at the leadoff spot.
Yeah, you were raving about her in the nightcap about how good of a job that she did in her first weekend up there, right?
Absolutely. She had 4 steals, I believe, had a home run. I mean, she hit 500. And I think she's that missing piece in the offense. They haven't really had a true stolen base daily threat since Kaylee Novak played here, like from 2012 to 2015. Searcy, from what I'm told, could be like a 2.0 version of Novak with power. So she's a great athlete, could be the future of this face of this program. And you got Georgia Blair hit 3 home runs in the 4 games. You had Juliana Wilson, Jules as they call her, hit 3 home runs. So this offense is still just as good as it was last year. Scored 31 runs in 4 games. So 3-1, good start. Now they got a New Mexico State team that's been hanging out in Florida playing so far. They have a very good offense, so this will be a good challenge for this pitching staff. So we'll see how they do in this 3-game stand. They got a bit of a long home stand here between now and the next few weeks. So they want to kind of, get these games in, and hopefully the weather improves. Forecast for Friday, it looks like it's going to be pretty ugly. So unfortunately, Murph, our opening days may get delayed a day if it doesn't improve. But we'll see how they do. But again, very positive signs for UCF overall. 3 out of 4. Don't read into the voters dropping the polls. The voters are clueless in softball. They're the most clueless voters in all of college athletics.
Wow. Where have we heard that before? Gianna Mancha, Eric, got 3 appearances, 1 start. She threw a complete game. Also picked up a save over the weekend. Gave up only 4 hits and 6 2/3. Perhaps a good number 3 out there for UCF in addition to Aaliyah White and Brianna Vasquez, huh?
Could be the number 2. I mean, Brianna Vasquez was the number 3 on the weekend. G actually closed the game in the final game of that series. So I actually think G might be the number 2. We'll get a more telling reading over the coming weeks. But she might be the number 2 starter because she's somebody that could also close games out. So I think Coach Ball Malone would like to have her as a starter and a reliever, especially when you get into these 4-game conference series.
Yeah, no, that's true. All right, so we'll be keeping an eye on the schedule for UCF softball. Once again, they are back home this week to face New Mexico State Friday at 6, Saturday 3, Sunday at 1. How good's New Mexico State, Eric?
They're favorites among the co-favorites to win the WAC. They hit the ball and hit the ball far. So if you like offense, they're pretty interesting to watch. But
pretty easy for them to do that where they're up in where they are up in New Mexico at the high altitudes, right?
Correct. Yep. But they're the favorites to win the WAC, and this is part of this stretch with Coach Ball Malone and her schedule. I mean, you got New Mexico State's a favorites in the WAC. Missouri's a top 25 team. Next weekend, as we'll get into, is McNeese State is the favorite in the Southland, and it's been a very good mid-major team that'll probably be a 3 seed somewhere in a regional. So it's teams that are going to be competing for their conference championships and might see them become the field of 64 come in May.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. I want to hop over to tennis real quick and update you on that. Men's tennis is at 2-2. They came up just short at home against Texas A&M, number 10 Texas A&M, by the way. Came down to the number 3 court, which had a tiebreaker in the first set, but Carlos Aguilar of Texas A&M defeated Trey Hildebrand 6-1 in the third to kind of wrap it for the Aggies. But again, this UCF team right now at number 19 in the country, continues to. It's going to help their ITA rankings playing these tough schedules. So they came up, even though they came up short against Texas A&M, they go on the road to UNF at Jacksonville on Friday at 2, and then they play FAU and Boca on Sunday before they have almost a week off, and then they're back home on Friday the 26th against Florida Gulf Coast.
These UCF coaches, man, John Roddick adding top 20 teams on a dime. I mean, Sydney,
I know.
We're just adding top 25 teams on short notice.
What an advantage to be in Orlando, right? You can just call them up, be like, hey, you're going to be in town? Yeah, we're going to be traveling. Hey, come on up. All right, let's do it. And boom, you have a game. Women's tennis. They have won 6 in a row. Now, they defeated Miami 4-0, just wiped them out last Saturday, and then they play again. They're out on the road in the Lone Stars. Although I don't know how they're going to work this out with the if the situation in the state of Texas because of the snowstorm continues to be as it is. They're scheduled to play Texas and Austin on the 21st. That's Sunday at 1, and then they go to Fort Worth to play TCU Tuesday at 1, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
So we may not see them play Texas or TCU, and if that's the case, their next scheduled match is the 27th at home against FAU. That's a Saturday at noon. So
Texas, by the way, technically the defending national champions, by the
way. Right. So we got to keep an eye on that one. That would be a bummer if they can't get that in. That would be a big match for the women's team if they could get that in, but not 100% sure on that one.
Come on, Brian, make some phone calls to Mother Nature. Tell them it's
I said, give Brian, give Brian a break here. He's, it's not his fault that Texas doesn't know how to handle snow.
I really wish our coaches were more in touch with weather and just could call it right up and say, "Hey, enough of this.
Yeah, well,
Stop, rain."
I really wish that the state of Texas was a little bit more up on weather, but whatever. Let's see. Moving over to volleyball. Wanted to update you on the volleyball team. They had the 2 matches against Miami canceled on Friday the 26th and Sunday the 28th. That's a bummer because that's really the only power conference team that they had on the slate for this month. Although Todd Dagenet dropped a little hint on Twitter that they might be getting somebody else as a replacement who could perhaps raise some eyebrows. So that would be fun. They obviously won their match at Jacksonville last Tuesday, but they had this weekend off. They are in Temple. They're playing actually today being Thursday, February 18th at 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus, and they play Temple again on Friday at 5. So you can catch both those matches on ESPN Plus up in Philly as the Knights actually start the official conference slate up in Philadelphia before they return home. So I would guess that they would be favored in Philly, but you know how it is up in Philly. They just, it's tricky up there sometimes. So bummer that they lost the Miami match. So next home match for UCF, at least scheduled as of right now, is March 5th, Friday, 6 p.m. against ECU, followed by Saturday at 2 against ECU. All right. Eric, let me want to talk a little bit about soccer here. Because
That's right, yeah. Maybe sweep Temple, both in men and women.
Yeah, the cold weather, contrary to what Coach Sahadak was talking about, the cold weather was not a problem for UCF on Valentine's Day as they go up to Temple and they score and they beat them 3-0. Katie Bradley had a goal 2 minutes in. Mallory Olson, one of those newcomers who she talked about, had a pair of goals afterwards to kind of wrap it up. UCF unleashed 16 shots and held Temple to just 4. And UCF goes 1-0 on the season. So good start for UCF. They're home against Cincinnati on Sunday. But that was a pretty impressive performance, wasn't it, Eric?
Yeah, very solid. Scored right 2 minutes into the match to take the 1-0 lead. Really controlled the match throughout. Very impressive considering the conditions there. Good start for Coach Sahadak and company. We had her on in the special women's soccer preview podcast, which you can still listen to on this podcast channel. And, who would step up goal scoring? Well, at least in this one, it was Mallory Olson off the bench with 2 goals. Very impressive start for them.
Yeah. On the men's side, they were also up at Temple, and they got the W as well the day before in Philadelphia. Gino Vivi got the lone goal, 1-0, 38th minute. For UCF to take care of business up in Temple, and so that gets UCF back to 1-1 after the surprise loss to Tulsa. Looks like they kind of figured out what they had to figure out, and now they come home Saturday for their War on I-4 game against South Florida at 6. But I think, Eric Lopez, they are, at least as of right now, the way it looks, they are booking on Gino Vivi to fill the admittedly enormous shoes of Cal Jennings as their primary striker. But as we saw in glimpses last year, he's up to it, and he certainly was up in Philly, wasn't he?
He was, and he's going to have to even maybe do more because of news this week. Former All-American Luis Perez has signed a pro deal with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds of the USL. Gotta love that, by the way, Riverhounds. Huh? I mean, so he signed a pro deal. So he's done. His UCF career is done. In fact, he quote in the press release, "I want to thank Knight Nation for truly making me feel like a Knight during my time at UCF," said Perez. "I want to thank my teammates that have become my brothers. We have been together for years, and it's time to thank you for all those special moments. I want to thank the coaching staff for bringing a kid from France and turning me into a man, and I am today. I will always be grateful for the opportunity that UCF gave me." So he's now pro. And, we talked about this with Coach Calabrese on our men's soccer preview about pro guys that can sign pro deals right now, either in the States or overseas. And we just see, here we go, Luis Perez, who did get banged up in the first match against Tulsa at home. I don't know, I think he was going to be all right, but you don't know if that played a role in all that or, hey, I don't want to make sure I sign a deal before I get hurt again or something. But he's now playing in the USL, so that's one less guy on this team, so Gino and other guys are going to have to step up on the offense. And, boy, this is what an interesting scene this will be this weekend in their big rivalry match.
Yeah, could you imagine, like, any other sport, like, you know, you just start, like, imagine if you just start the football season, right? And, like, Richie Grant, 2 games in, is like, I'm going to sign with the Baltimore Ravens, you know? And it's so weird. And you know, I imagine what, you know, Coach Calabrese has to deal with. I suspect, though, that Scott was prepared for that because we thought that Louis and a couple of the other guys might get drafted. I think Yoni was also up there possibly. So I think that was still in the back of their mind, like, we have to be ready for that. But you're right. It's still weird, though, but they were prepared for this, weren't they?
You hope so. We'll find out Saturday when they play.
Yeah, I know.
You assume that they had a plan ready because you're right. Because a lot of people thought he would get drafted in the super draft. And it didn't happen. So I would assume they had a plan. Hey, if he's going to get drafted and leaves, then this is what we got to do. But still, man, it's unique, and it's one of the hurdles they got to through. I mean, it's not the only soccer program that's dealing with this, but I mean, that's the uniqueness of this season for both men's and women's soccer, dealing with departures, and in this case, during the season. Yeah,
it is weird, but nonetheless, it's something that we got to deal with here on the men's side. So, all right. Couple other things I wanted to. Oh, did you guys see Parker Boudreaux's Twitter feed?
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
What do you think? Eric didn't see it?
What a dumb question that is. You gotta love the fact that he dropped his official, looked like his official wrestling debut hype video, right?
Pretty much. He pretty much finally made it official. What we all have known, and we first reported here on Black and Gold Banneret, is that his football career is done.
Yeah.
He basically was no longer on the UCF football roster about a month in early January, and he signed a deal with WWE. Probably right around the end of January, and it's funny because last week on a conference call promoting their pay-per-view NXT TakeOver, Triple H, Paul Levesque, who is like one of the higher, now bosses in World Wrestling Entertainment and basically helps us sign a lot of these young guys' contracts, was asked about Parker Boudreaux and what's ahead for Parker Boudreaux. It's not as simple as just getting into the ring, as Triple H explains. It's about now the process of developing and learning what to do, because after all, in this industry, it's about the game and how you play it.
People look at somebody like Parker and they see, oh my God, he looks like Brock Lesnar. So like immediately they go, oh, he's the next big thing, and he's got a big personality, and we'll see what he can do. For all of this, it's you have to be ready to be a performer. Even Brock Lesnar wasn't a guy that as amazing, and Parker is as well, as amazing as an athlete as he is. You got to be trained. You got to know what you're doing. Everything's got to be done safely. So everybody that we bring in the door, you want to succeed to the best of their ability and their capability. All the tools are there for them to use. I say this a lot at the Performance Center, that the generations that came before you had none of these tools. They just get trained and learn from the people that were around them as they were getting to do this. And in some ways they're limited today because of the environment of today. There's no live event, so to speak, right now, and we're working around that, but they didn't have all the other tools at their disposal on a 24/7 basis. So their ability to succeed is increased greatly, but it's what they do with those tools. People have a tendency to want to say it's this that makes somebody, this training or this person or that, reminds me of the saying, success has 1,000 fathers, failure is an orphan, right? Like everybody wants to be a part of that and say, this is what it did and this is how it was and all that stuff. The truth is, you just make those things available to people. What they do with them is up to them. Their success or failure, how hard they work, how driven they are, how willing they are to take no for unwilling they are to take no for an answer, and everything else that goes with that. So I'm incredibly excited about Parker Boudreaux coming in, Bronson Ricksteiner. We have a lot of people coming in the door, just as I am about people that have been here for a while, like Rick Boogs and a lot of people that are in the door that are at the cusp. COVID has slowed that down, but they're right there. When I say the future is bright, that is what I'm talking about, is the ability for those folks that are in those positions, that are in those on-deck positions, to be able to explode into growth and be the next, I don't want to use the next big thing because everybody thinks about Brock, but to be that next star, to be that next megastar, and they want to put it on everybody else's development. But, I was there when The Rock became The Rock. The Rock became The Rock. Austin became Austin. It very much so has a lot to do. Yes, they have to be given the opportunity. Yes, they have to be given the platform, but it is the performer.
That is Triple H. By the way, how fired up am I? We finally could say that Triple H, we heard from Triple H on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
First time ever.
Huh?
First time ever for Hunter.
Yeah. There you go. But what's interesting is he signed basically a year after Cal Bloom signed his developmental deal. So if you're looking for a timeline, but I you get a sense that certainly he has a higher prospect. But I thought it was interesting, Murph, because I know you listened to the audio there. Triple H kind of trying to calm down the hype there, right? Not comparing him to Brock Lesnar and saying, look, there's a long ways to go here in developing here, and it's not as simple as you just show up.
Well, of course.
Well, I think people lose sight of that because they just look again, and Hunter makes it clear, like, people look at him, and we do this all the time, though. We do this all the time. We look at someone, in a sport who looks like someone in that same sport, and we compare those people. But there's so much that goes into that in terms of just preparation and how much they actually know the game. And yeah, it's going to take Parker a lot of time to refine his himself to get into a ring. Don't forget, he has not been a wrestler. He has been a football player. He's very new at this. And so he's got the body, he's got the look, but that is not what you need to actually make it in the business. It's not.
Yeah.
And the personality. We got to also have the personality, and we'll see if he has that or not. We don't know. I mean, how many times, Murph, did we even see him on media availabilities? I don't know, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I think twice. I think I talked to him twice. I wouldn't say anything really stood out. Like, there are some players who you just love to talk to, like Richie Grant, Otis Anderson. There really wasn't that kind of stuff with Parker, but he has shown personality on social media, no doubt. I mean, obviously, he's got that when he's not talking to when he's not talking to us, the scribes. So I'm sure he does have personality that he can use in the ring and on the mic, but also, like, well, how does he talk and how does it come across? Like, you can have personality, but the flow that you have, it matters a lot too. So he's got to learn how to do that seamlessly, as well as being, a technically sound wrestler. Like, there's a lot that goes into that, and we couldn't just base this off of he's going to have success because he looks like Brock Lesnar. As Hunter said, Brock Lesnar was not a finished product by any means when he came to WWE, and he was a college wrestler.
You call him Hunter, too. It's great. I love it.
All the back. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right about all that. By the way, I mean, that's part of the business there, and we'll see. Hopefully, but I'm excited for him. Listen, the big thing he's got going for him, he's got people like Paul Heyman on his corner that is really has endorsed him. So that's when you got people like Paul Heyman who've been in this industry for a long time, can see talent. That's a positive.
Do the work. He's got to do the work now.
Yep. Well, we're gonna see. I mean, he's set himself up for the big debut, right? The hype is already there, regardless of what Triple H says. So if he pulls this off, hey, more power to him. But he bet on himself big, so we're gonna have to see how that all works out for him. So all right.
And if he's looking for a manager, I'm available.
Well, we got to get him. If you can get him, listen. I would hire you if I were him, Eric. I would hire you as long as you got Cal Bloom as the debut match.
Oh, that's going to be tough. I mean, don't you want them to be tag team partners and then they turn on each other? That's kind of how that would prolong their kind of run there. That would be the way I would do it.
This is why you would make a good manager, Eric. This is why.
Although Murph might be the better manager. Murph's got the personality, he's got the look, he's got the the mouthpiece, if you will.
I've got the look. I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, man, you're like Captain. You're like the Lou Albano for classy flooding. I mean, Captain Lou Albano, Bobby the Brain. You're Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Let's move forward in this podcast.
I was thinking more along the lines of Teddy Long with the way that you dress, Murph, right?
Hey, player. Hey,
this ain't how it's going to go down, players.
Hold up, player.
Gosh,
you got to hook us up. Whenever we get back to normal here, Jeffrey, you got to get us
I got to try. Yeah, you're right. I got to try. I've always been curious about the experience at NXT at Full Sail. I really
and now, especially now.
Especially now that you can't get in and see it.
Well, that and we're probably going to see Parker if he does make his debut, whatever that is. Will probably be in NXT if I had to guess.
All right. Yeah. All right, looking forward to that. All right. We kept everything, right? There's nothing else we got here. We're in good shape. This is great. What a podcast. A lot of stuff that we just rolled on through. I do want to make sure that I remind, not just rewind, but remind everybody that you should check out for a lot more on Gus Malzahn. Check out our episode of Night Shift, where myself, Eric, Brian, and Drew hopped on board, and a little bit later, Jeremy Brenner hopped on board to talk about and break down the Gus Malzahn hire. We even broke down his contract, and everything that we have. We got some more content coming this week. Anthony Lenahan did a 2,500-word breakdown of Gus Malzahn's offense. Isn't that delicious?
Yeah.
God, that's fantastic. In addition, we have a lot of player reaction as well. Danny Medina's been all over that. Thanks to Danny. And thanks also to Jeremy, because we've been trying out something new with our newsletter. We're actually dropping it in your email inboxes. So if you want to get our newsletter, that's newsletter with a K, with all the latest news from around the world of UCF sports, including the latest content that we've been pumping out here on Black and Gold Banneret, hop on over to our Twitter feed or onto blackandgoldbanneret.com. Click on the newsletter, and there's a link there where you can sign up and get the latest UCF news in your inbox at 9 a.m. every weekday morning. Thanks again to Jeremy for really killing it with that stuff. Like we said, we will have plenty of coverage of UCF sports over the weekend as we roll through this wild spring. Everything is in fast forward. Wanted to give out some props also to all the staff at UCF who helped us out with all the interviews and this busy last 2 weeks. It's been wild, man. And pour one out for those folks, because they're working their tails off over there with a lot more workload than they're normally used to, all over the place. Facilities, communications, you name it. Everybody's been busting it for you, the fans, and we wanted to express how thankful we were to them for their generosity and for their counsel as well on helping us throughout the week. So that'll do it for us on the Black and Gold Banneret podcast. Follow us at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. You can follow Brian at Spokes_Murphy, and of course me at Jeff_Sharon. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next week.